What advice would I give to someone new to witchcraft?
If you would like to learn about fairy folklore, delve into modern fairy faith spirituality, and explore fun and fanciful fairy-themed events, please subscribe to Fairy Fortunes for new videos every Friday.
Hello, my fair friends. I'm Ruby Ruse, and today on Fairy Fortunes, I would like to give my video response to Abi the Witch. She was brand new to magical practice, and she had some advice to others who were new to the path and on their first time spiritual journey through magic and witchcraft and all things occult and mysterious. And I was really inspired by her advice. I thought it was very practical. However, with my length of experience, I thought that I could add an addendum to her helpful advice. I really don't like the term baby witch, though. I would call a new person to witchcraft a seeker or a student, but I wouldn't refer to them as baby witches. Although I do know that that's like the slang term, that's kind of what people say, but I would really wish that people wouldn't do that. Most of you that are on a seeking journey towards magical practice are grown adults. I'm not going to refer to you as a baby, as I say this very seriously while sitting right next to a toy rabbit. This is Baby Bunny for anyone who didn't know that already. And before we get into Abi the Witch's really helpful advice and my addendums to them, I would like to pose a question to those of you out there who are not new to witchcraft or a magical practice. I would like for you to tell me in the comments the one piece of advice that you would have liked to have had when you started your path. And if you are new, please leave any question you have about magical practice or witchcraft or the occult in the comments below. I'm really good about responding to my comments, and I promise I will answer you. Abi's first piece of useful advice was on the subject of gatekeepers. Now, she went into a little bit of bullying with gatekeeping, and I would say that gatekeeping really isn't about bullying. Bullying is a horrid practice that you're going to come across in this life and in this world. A bully usually attacks people because they themselves, I think, feel weak, so they want to use whatever way they can to intimidate others, to make the others feel small so they're the largest person in the room. So there's always people like that in this world. I just feel that bullying is something that's outside of gatekeeping. What I would say gatekeeping is, it's when you encounter certain people in the magical community that say, "Oh, you can't do that. Oh, that's not something that people do." We're talking about magic here. Magic is imagination. It's fueled by imagination. If you think about it, every single thing in our world today had to be imagined first before it could be manifested, or, as they like to say in capitalism, produced. So magic is imagination, and people imagine all kinds of crazy things, and that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So no, there is nothing that you can't imagine. Now, ethically speaking, there are things that would be better for some and not for others. You have to evaluate your own set of ethics and decide for yourself what you will and what you won't do when it comes to manifesting your magic. The point of gatekeeping that really, really irritates me is that you'll sometimes encounter elders in the magical community that'll be like, "Oh, I can't teach you that. It's too dangerous. You're not ready." If someone says, "I can't teach you that," full stop. Stop. They're right. They can't teach you that because they do not know how. So move on. That doesn't mean that that magic is too dangerous. It doesn't mean that you're not ready. It means that it's too dangerous for them and they're not ready for that kind of magic. And you know what? That's fine. That is fine. But don't ever let someone else put limits on your magic, your imagination, what you can manifest and produce in this world. Now, another roadblock under gatekeeping comes in the form of cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is a very serious topic, and it's one of those things that you have to evaluate ethically when you are conducting your magical studies. But I think people are going way too far with the cultural appropriation in the magical community. Now let me explain what I mean by that. One of the greatest magical practitioners I have ever known, one of the greatest teachers I have ever been privileged to study under, is the pagan author Chris Allen. Chris Allen looks like a white man. That's what he looks like. He looks like a cis white man. That's what he looks like. Well, it just so happens he's not white. He actually has Native American ancestry, and he has been trained by the Lakota tribe to be a pipe carrier. He is a part of the Lakota Native American culture. And what I am trying to point out is that you cannot look at a person and know their culture, because a person can be adopted into a culture. So just by looking at someone does not mean you know their history. You do not know their culture. So I think we need to back off a little bit when it comes to accusing people of cultural appropriation in the magical community. And here's the other thing. We get so caught up in cultural appropriation in the magical community that we are not allowing people to become educated on practices such as voodoo, or looking at goddesses and gods from the Egyptian pantheon, or looking at gods worshipped by the Nigerian people. You can study these things. If someone has written a book on the subject, they do want you to buy it and to read it. If a Native American person has designed and manifested beautiful Indian beadwork jewelry, they want you to buy it and use it and wear it. If somebody comments on the item and you say, "Oh, thank you so much, I bought these earrings from this amazing Native American artist," you should go to their website and see the rest of their work. That is respect. That is not cultural appropriation. Likewise, there are numerous books on the Bhagavad Gita, on Taoism and Hindu culture. If you want to learn about these cultures, you should do so. If you fall in love with a Hindu god and you begin meditating and praying to this god, it is nobody's business but yours. The only thing that I would caution you against doing a big workshop on a minority culture that you don't have official training in is where that becomes disrespectful. Abby's second tip is anyone can be a witch. Yes, absolutely. Anyone can be a witch. I don't like the terms witch and witchcraft, because the idea behind witchcraft is that it's a craft that you practice. And in my opinion, magic is not something you practice. Magic is a birthright. Magic is like singing. Everyone can sing. Everyone at least can sing happy birthday. We do that multiple times a year, generally speaking. Everybody can sing. Now, some people go on to become opera singers, and they do that with intensive training. but they could sing before they went into that training. So the magic belongs to you. You were born with it. It's in the universe. It's part of this world that we live in. It's a part of the human experience. So yes, anyone can be a witch. Abi goes on to advise that you don't have to worry about what kind of witch you are. And I was kind of taken aback by that, because I'm like, oh, there's types? Let me explain. Now, magic is generally defined by two broad categories. And this is broad, it's broad. So you have ceremonial magic, which is magic that has very specific rituals, very specific spells that you follow, and the symbols are a part of a very specific tradition, usually. So you will see ceremonial magic in Wicca, you will see ceremonial magic in places like the Golden Dawn, in even Masonry. It has a ceremony to it. And then the other side of that is there's chaos magic. Chaos magic says that all of these symbols that are used in the ceremonial magic are just that. The magic isn't in the symbol. In chaos magic, the magic is already there, and you're using the symbol to engage your own mind, to ignite your imagination and make this magic go. So those are the two big, broad categories of what type of magic there is. There's also the big four of magical traditions. Those are Wicca, Tradcraft, Heathenry, and Druidry. And then there's also indigenous practice. Native Americans actually don't call what they do magic, but by a Western mindset, it does look a great deal like magic. But also in the indigenous category is also things like voodoo and Santeria. And let me just go right back to cultural appropriation with that. If you are welcomed into a group that practices voodoo and Santeria and even Native American practice, then you have the right to practice those things. And before that, you have the right to research those things as well. So the knowledge is out there, go and find it. Now, what I think Abi the Witch meant, though, was she was talking about maybe like qualifiers to magic. So we have white magic and black magic and green magic, and then there's also things like kitchen witches and hedge witches and that kind of thing. They're just a descriptor for what you're into. So for example, I'm into fairies. So a lot of people call me the fairy witch. I find that amusing. You don't have to pick a subject, you know. Basically, I think what she's referring to is that it's kind of like college, you know. You don't have to pick your major right away. And just because you pick something doesn't mean that you can't explore something later on. Just to give you a little bit more background on my personal journey through magical practice was actually I only recently got into what I would call fairy magic, or sorcery as sometimes it's referred to. And that was really kind of accidental. I started out as a performer. I dressed up as a fairy and was performing at fairy festivals. And it was through that I started being called, if you will, by the fairy spirits. And I started listening. And then with my work in Tradcraft, once again, it encouraged more communications, more sorcery with the spirits out there. So it was very much an accident that I got into fairy magic. I do say that I practice modern fairy faith spirituality now, because that is what I'm into now. I don't think the fairies are going to let me go, though. But you don't have to put a descriptor on yourself. What do you want to know about? Do you want to know about gods and goddesses? Do you want to study rituals? Do you want to know about crystals? Do you want to practice with herbs? Do you want to go into sex magic? Like, there's a ton of things that you can do with magic. Abby's fourth tip is you don't have to know everything right away, and she is absolutely true with that. Listen, I'm 50 years old. Yay, I'm so excited. I'm thinking about keeping my gray hair. Let me know if I should keep it or dye it. Let me know. I'm turning 50 years old this summer. I'm very excited about that. And as I mentioned, I grew up in a magical family. We told fortunes, we believed in psychic abilities, we talked to spirits, like we did a lot of things. We had little charms that we did, that kind of stuff. So I've been practicing magic since the day I was born. And I still am learning new things. How can you possibly know everything? You'll never know everything. And that is the exciting part of being alive in this universe. Abby's last piece of advice is to find a mentor. Maybe. Maybe not. How about this instead? Find your people. Find like-minded people. Because I have to roll back to tip number 1 and gatekeeping here. A lot of people that are elders in the pagan community, I love it because I encounter elders and then they find out that I'm actually older than they are. Welcome to magic, people. This is what it looks like. There are some great teachers out there. I've been very fortunate. Like I said, I've studied with Chris Allen. He was amazing. I have also been fortunate. I actually learned geomancy, the divination system that I'm so crazy about. I learned that in person with John Michael Greer, who's one of the leading experts. So I have been very fortunate to find some incredible magical teachers. I've also encountered a lot of people who do not know what the heck they are talking about. The longest relationship I've had with a magical teacher is actually Chris Allen. And one of the most amazing things about Chris is that he never puts himself on a pedestal. He comes to you from a place of respect. I would hazard to guess that Chris would say that he often learns as much about magic from his students as he does teaching his students about the magical techniques that he's offering. Because there's always more to know. And that's the thing. A good magical teacher knows that. It's hard to find a good teacher. It really, really is. I would say there's probably more bad ones out there than there are stellar ones like Chris Allen. So find your people. Find like-minded people that want to practice and experiment with you. Learn together. You don't necessarily need to learn from someone. You need to learn with someone. So where do you find people? Well, you don't always have to walk out of your front door to find people, because right now we have the amazing piece of magic that is the internet. On social media platforms like the YouTube video that you're watching right now, there are a host of pagan YouTube artists that you can learn about all kinds of different forms of magic. There are also Facebook groups that focus on pagan spirituality and rituals, and they offer workshops and all kinds of things. There's also occult bookstores and metaphysical shops that offer classes, and sometimes they offer like just get-togethers where you can go and talk about what you're working on and listen to what other people have to say about their magical practice and their magical workings. But you have to be social. Be brave. Trust me, I have social anxiety. If I can do it, you can too. I promise. You can. And with anyone that you come in contact with the magical community, and especially with someone who comes to you wanting to be your mentor, you've got to evaluate them. Look at who they are. Look at what they do. Look at what they do, because the proof is in the pudding. What is their magic? What are they doing? A person that is a solid magical practitioner is going to be a functional human being, okay? They are going to have a place where they live that's going to be reasonably clean. They are going to have contribution in the community. They're going to be participating. They are going to be somewhat financially stable, because these are all things that magic can take care of. Also, they are going to be reasonably healthy people. Now, hang on a second. Magical people, the world is full of chaos, okay? Hello, 2020. We all had some tough times in that year, but yes, shit happens, okay? It does. People get sick and people lose jobs and things like that, and people get stressed out and their houses go to hell. These things happen. But overall, a person who is purporting to be a magical person, a person with magical experience, is generally going to have a functional life. So if a person comes to you claiming to be a mentor and they're living in their parents' basement, that is not a magical person that you want to have dealings with. Because the proof is in the pudding. What has their magic done for them? What are they doing? They should be able to explain to you how they make their magic work. And if they can't do that, you have to question if it really is magic, because there should be some evidence of what they have done. Because here's the thing, magic is simple. Now, that doesn't mean that it's easy, but magic is simple. For example, as I said, I came from a magical family. My aunt, one of my favorite magical aunts, Aunt Sal, got cancer, and she did die of cancer. She did die because human beings die. But she was given 6 months to live, and she turned that 6 months into the very best 5 years that she could possibly manifest by magic. How did she do that? Well, she made a point to go to all of her doctor's appointments on time. She moved in with my Aunt Maddie so that she would have a support system to help her. And then in addition to that, she made a point to spend time with people who were important to her. That's magic. That's how she survived for 5 years. And they were a good 5 years. That's magic. Remember that magic is your birthright. It is a part of the world. It is a part of you. And all you have to do is access it. Use your imagination and go for it. Try things out. Be brave. Have courage to be who you could be. If you like this video, you might also enjoy my video, What is the Fairy Star?, which talks about my modern fairy faith spirituality and also other versions of fairy faith spirituality. In addition to talking about my personal spiritual path here on YouTube, I also talk about fairy folklore and fairy-themed events. And if those topics appeal to you, I would invite you to join me on Facebook and Instagram. I post nearly daily content, and both have unique content to those two platforms. I would also encourage you to visit my website, www.fairyfortunes.com. On my blog, I have a book list that showcases my favorite occult-themed books, so I will have a link to that resource down below in the description box. But also on my website, you can purchase readings and products and also see where I'm performing in that year. So please do check me out, and I will see you soon. And with that, have a magical day.